Senator from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator McCain may have represented the people of Arizona, but in doing so, he changed the world. His family legacy and leadership are actually rooted partly in the Pacific. He met his wife Cindy in Honolulu, and generations of McCains have left their mark on the region. His grandfather served in the Pacific Theater as an admiral in World War II. Then his father commanded the armed forces in the Pacific during the Vietnam War, and John S. McCain III would become the most famous POW of the Vietnam War. His relationships with the region began with those conflicts, with pain and with loss. But he never let that beginning define his views of the Asia-Pacific. As a senator, he called for the United States to transform the peace we made with Vietnam into a partnership. It is thanks in part to him that the United States now works closely with Vietnam on everything from economic development to counterterrorism. And the people of Vietnam know it. The monument that marks where he was captured as a naval pilot in Vietnam has turned into a shrine this week, with people leaving flowers in memory of the man who helped normalize relations between our two nations. This is just one of the ways that Senator McCain has shaped the Pacific. Just a few years ago, he designed the Southeast Asia Maritime Security Initiative, which will increase stability and help to professionalize militaries in the region, including the military of Vietnam. He was a strong advocate for freedom of navigation in the region and for human rights. He worked with Senator Cardin to introduce a bill that would punish military officials in Burma for the part that they have played in waging genocide against the Rohingya, a bill that I hope the Senate will pass soon. He was an early voice that warned about North Korea's nuclear program, and as a longtime member and chairman of the Armed Services Committee, he always stood up for our men and women in uniform. A few years ago, on the 70th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, my predecessor, Daniel K. Inouye, planned to give a floor speech remembering the 2,400 Americans who died that day. Senator Inouye's staff made it known that he would mark the anniversary on the Senate floor, but he gave that speech to a chamber that was not full. But John McCain was there. He was there for Senator Inouye, just as he had been there for our military and for our country time after time. He was earnest and he was solemn when it came to fulfilling his oath to the Constitution. But he was also the embodiment of taking your job seriously, not yourself. One tribute from a former staff member recalled Senator McCain led a codel to Estonia, where he joined his Senate colleague Hillary Clinton in enjoying several rounds of vodka shots before deciding to take a midnight stroll around town. He also remembered the senator holding a press conference in a geothermal pool in Iceland, bathing suit and all. Early on in my time in the United States Senate, I would pick up the phone and call my dad to tell him whenever I had a substantive conversation with Senator McCain, because he was that much of a giant. And now he's gone. Mr. President, we all need people in our lives who ask us to do more, who remind us that we are capable of doing more and doing better. The world needs heroes, and we have lost one with the death of Senator McCain. He once challenged a leader in his party to, quote, set an example for what our country can and should represent. That was also his challenge to the Senate. He demanded more of the Senate and more from ourselves, and for that especially, he will be missed in these chambers. Who will hold us accountable when we fall into a destructive pattern? When he lectured us, and he did lecture us, we took it to heart. He was true north for the United States Senate. He cared deeply about relationships between members of both parties. He cared about legislating and about finding a way to govern. And while he is gone, we do not need to forget the lessons and the lectures of Senator McCain. He is an example for us to follow. And that is as true today as it was in any of his 32 years of service to the Senate. We will miss him in this chamber where he cast a long shadow with moral clarity whenever he spoke. This week, our hearts are with his mother, Roberta, his wife, Cindy, his children, and his grandchildren. and to all those who loved him. May his memory be a blessing. I yield the floor.